How to reinvent yourself. Here are the 4 keys to creating a new reality. Before I get into these 4 keys, I want to share 2 main insights with you that, in my experience, have made all the difference in terms of making changes gracefully and quickly in my own life, and overcoming a lot of the obstacles, the resistance that tends to come up for nearly all of us when we try to change our life in significant ways. The first insight is this: you have to realize that your brain is wired against you in this sense. Your brain is wired to keep you safe, which can actually be very dangerous. It's kind of an irony, right? But it's true. Our reptilian neurology, the way our brain is kind of primitively wired, is to avoid newness, to avoid uncertainty, and to keep us locked into what is familiar. So even though there's a part of you that says it wants to change, it wants to overcome old patterns and to create new circumstances, new opportunities, new people in your life, there is another part of you in the way you're wired at a fundamental level that is going to resist that process. So if you don't understand how to skillfully work with that part of you, change is going to feel impossible. And you're going to keep repeating the same circumstances over and over again. And you're going to wonder why the hell it keeps happening the way that it does. Because in your conscious mind, you're telling yourself, well, I really want to change. But unconsciously, the way that you've been wired is that change is associated with danger. And even though you may not prefer your current circumstances, it's still preferable to leaping into uncertainty. Because once again, your reptilian brain says, oh, we want to avoid that at all costs because it's dangerous. It's going to threaten our very existence here. The second insight is this, and it completely extends off of that first insight. If you've gotten to a place in your life where you feel like you've just hit a creative dead end and you kind of want to give up, like your personal willpower has been exhausted in this process of trying to fix, change, and improve your life, of trying to figure things out and trying to understand and analyze your past and put all these puzzle pieces together. And it all just feels like not only kind of overwhelming, but kind of underwhelming too, in the sense that none of it really changes that much. And you keep kind of hitting the same walls in your reality. This experience can obviously be very frustrating and actually can lead people to despair and suicide and the opposite end of the spectrum from where we'd want to be. But I want you to know, if you've come up against that in your life, that kind of spiritual dead end where it just feels like nothing you're doing is really working all that well, there is a hidden blessing in that. And if you can start to see that experience as a blessing instead of as like the universe punishing you or as a real problem, the main problem that you need to overcome, instead see it as a blessing. And here's why. When that is happening, when you feel like your personal willpower is being exhausted and you've exhausted all of your kind of resources to change your life, what's happening is that the universe is inviting you. It is invoking you to explore a higher dimension of who you are, to create yourself from a higher expansion of consciousness. So Einstein said that, your problems cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that created them, right? We want to really get very proactive about applying that quote to our lives, that in order to really create solutions and shift into a higher reality, we have to expand our consciousness. It's non-negotiable. So these 4 tools are really designed to help you do exactly that, knowing that that's always going to be the ultimate solution, is going higher in who you are. And that applies to money, it applies to health, it applies to relationships, anything that is important to you in life. That is going to be your number 1 priority, okay, is consciousness expansion. All right, so along those lines, the first key component here is, of course, awareness. You can't change your life if you don't expand your awareness. So for most people, awareness is bound to the limits of thought and feeling. We assume we are this body and that the outer world is separate from us. So I want to trace this back to what I said in that first insight, that if you buy into your brain's patterning that change is to be avoided and that we should resist change, what's going to happen is you are going to self-sabotage. You have to see who you really are, your core identity outside of your brain function. And your brain is obviously kicking out all these thoughts and feelings, and your normal awareness is getting locked into that. Like, oh, that's me in there. That's my core identity, thinking these thoughts, feeling these feelings, and having these sensations in my body. And I'm over here, and the outer world's over here. And there's definitely a separation between the two. When you really are ready to change your life, your awareness expands. So you start to see yourself quite literally as all that is. Everything that your 5 senses can apprehend, all that you can perceive is literally you. And you are, instead of this separate personality and ego over here, You are what I call a cosmic character, created by infinite intelligence, playing this fun game of being human for a while. And when you start to see yourself through that lens, it's a complete game changer. It shifts your paradigm out of limitation and out of kind of this set, fixed mode of living and into expansion, into growth and learning mode, into humility and flexibility and confidence. You don't get so locked into your stubbornness and your insistence that, nope, this is just who I am and this is just how life is. So this is key number one, is expanding your awareness. Now, let's be truthful here. Most people aren't willing to do this. And there are really two motivational fuels that drive us to expand our awareness. Number one is just inspiration, pure inspiration. Number two is desperation. Usually it's going to be a combination of both of these, but more often than not, if we're brutally honest, there's a desperation there. We come up to this feeling of, like I said, hitting that kind of creative dead end. We've tried everything that we know of. We're not really sure how to change our life. And we're wondering what the hell to do about it. It is in that place where we hit crisis, we hit desperation. And that is our small self kind of screaming at us saying, what the hell, man? What am I supposed to do here? I don't really have the solutions. It is in that exact moment that you have the opportunity to expand. That's why it's a blessing. There's so much grace and opportunity in that experience. That's why in Taoism, they say, crisis is opportunity. It's quite literally true. It's not just some nice new age little cliche that makes you feel a little bit of comfort. It's literally the truth. In crisis is opportunity. So it's true. Most of us have to hit that desperation, that creative dead end, in order to transcend our small sense of self, expand our awareness outside of who we think we are, and start to see life from a much more vast point of view. Now, the second key component here is surrender. It's really an extension of awareness. You can't have one without the other. Surrender is the ability to free yourself from resistance to your current circumstances. And you want to do this for one simple reason. Every time you judge yourself or you resist your circumstances, you are literally wiring your mind to create more of the same. So if you keep resisting your partner, if you keep resisting your finances, and on anything you're, anything you're trying to do, like whether it's play a musical instrument or play a sport, if you keep resisting and judging yourself for your current level of performance, you're going to wire your mind. Your brain is going to get that feedback. Oh, okay, this is safe. Let's keep doing more of this. And you're literally programming your reality to generate more of the same experience. When you start to own that truth, well, of course, it creates more motivation now to do anything you can to create flexibility and surrender in your circumstances. Because the last thing you want to do is wire your brain to keep repeating and spitting out the same limiting circumstances, behaviors, and attitudes, right? So I'm a tennis player, and tennis is actually one of the best metaphors or analogies I can use for this, because what most tennis players do, and this, keep in mind, this applies to everything in life. Sports are always kind of a microcosm, in my opinion, for how you live your life. But even like very high level tennis players do this, like the top pros in the world, where if they miss a shot, they instantly start to react to that with negativity and like, God damn it, how did I miss that? And they start to judge themselves and they feel this anger and this frustration well up. And I've certainly had that experience in the past too. But what I noticed is, as I was doing that, I was telling my brain, more of this, please. I was wiring my brain to keep locking in that same level of performance. And the way that I started to rapidly make progress in tennis is, instead of resisting and judging myself, just knee-jerk reactions to the way I hit that shot, I trained my mind to experience surrender and awareness. So it's just objective, neutral observation of what I'm doing, almost like a scientist, like just pure objectivity. And then feel any anger or any pang of judgment that comes in, breathe space into it, and send love to it. Literally send love to it in the moment, because you know that if you buy into that, you are locking in the same reality over and over again. So think of how this could apply to your finances, how this applies to your partner, how this applies to your health, your fitness, anything that matters to you. You want to get very passionate about cultivating this skill and really this superpower of surrender in your life. And then from there, an extension of that is imagination. And I'll take the tennis metaphor a little bit further here. Imagination is about rewiring your mind and shifting into a new identity. So you start to plant images in your mind and feel feelings that align with this ideal vision you have for your life. So in tennis, for example, I see myself as what I would call like a 5-0 tennis player, which is basically a pro player. And I'm not that far away from that currently, but I used to see myself much more like my vision was more unconscious, and I saw myself kind of playing a lower level game, and I kept beating myself up for making the same mistakes. Now my vision, my ideal vision is I'm a 5-0 player, and here's what it feels like to hit a forehand or hit my serve playing that higher level of tennis. And I start to anchor in the emotions and the visions and the imagery of who I would be if I was already that. And I start to hit my shots believing that that's already me in there doing that, right? And then every time a judgment kicks in and says, damn it, why did I miss that shot? I send it love, I send it surrender, and then I use my imagination in the moment to shift into the ideal vision that I have for that shot. And I train my brain to step out of the old and into the new. So once again, if you judge yourself in that moment, you are reinforcing, locking in the old, your brain's neurological primitive patterning. And when you use imagination, you are training your brain to step into the new. Now, there's a lot of fluff and new agey woo-woo stuff out there about imagination. And, whatever you believe to be true is cool. Like if you believe that you can use your imagination to manifest a pink elephant in your living room right now, fantastic. All the power to you. I tend to look at imagination in a much more practical way. All that you're really doing when you're using your imagination is removing the interference from your ego, from your small self, from doubt and fear. You're removing that interference and you're aligning with a higher version of who you are. You are expanding your consciousness. And then you are absorbing the signals you get back from that higher mind that you possess. And you are living your life from that place. So instead of living your life from the old solid egoic self and locking in those repetitive patterns, you use your imagination to shift into a higher version of who you are, and you train yourself to stabilize those higher frequencies of energy through practice. And you can do that with tennis, piano, any musical instrument you play, making money, operating at a higher level in your business, being a better partner, being a better parent, treating your body more skillfully. It applies literally to everything in your life. So imagination, it's gotten kind of a bad rap because I think a lot of people tend to dismiss it because it sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's very, very practical. If you know how to use your imagination in the right way, it literally is a superpower that can catapult you to any level of, any quality of life that you want, any level of reality, and any version of yourself that you want to experience. And then the fourth key component here is faith. The way I've experienced this, and I'm sure you can relate to this, if you try to use your imagination, you've kind of anchored in this ideal vision you have for your life, you felt it as if it's already here, you're going to notice that there's a delay between what physical reality is doing and this new vision you have in your life. That's called the germination phase. I believe that's what Neville Goddard termed it. And I definitely resonate with that term. It makes a lot of sense because that new vision is going through this process of going from a seed inside of you to finding full expression in physical reality. And in this 3D world, there is always going to be a timeline, a gap between our vision and what shows up in the world. And what a lot of people do, and this 100% used to be me too, is you'd get all excited about your vision, you'd feel it, it'd feel great, you'd have confidence in it. But then if it didn't happen in physical reality, based on the timeline that you thought it should, you say, oh, this stuff doesn't work, you give up, and you go back to being depressed, cynical, or just banging your head against physical reality. So how you relate to this germination phase will determine how quickly you accelerate into a new reality. And it's really about spiritual confidence, boldness, spiritual courage, metaphysical courage is what I call it, what Alan Watts calls it. How you relate to that gap, that delay, is one of the most important factors for how quickly your life accelerates to a new level, how much you are able to reinvent yourself and shift into a new identity. So that's where faith comes in. You want to wire in faith. And as much as you're wiring in, confidence and abundance and love into your life, start to train your brain to become more faithful, more emotionally resilient, to not give up so quickly. We live in a culture that prides itself on immediate gratification. And we have this mistaken assumption that when I get the things that I want quickly, that means I'm happy. That means I'm successful. But in this sense, in a deeper spiritual sense, living at a higher frequency of reality, it's going to take some time. It's not designed in your human experience to happen overnight, right? Like I said, you can't just think a thought and manifest whatever that thought is within the next few seconds. I mean, most of the time. especially if it's significant to you. It's going to take some time. And however long it takes is however long it takes, whether it takes a week, a month, a year, 10 years. Your job is to just transform into the best version of yourself, no matter what your circumstances are doing. So that's where faith comes in. You want to wire that in and start to realize the importance of it and see it as a daily priority of activating this presence of faith within and seeing everything that happens in your reality as supporting you in this journey of evolution. And even the things that are unwanted, even when you experience adversity, and in fact, especially when you have adversity, that is your best opportunity to elevate your consciousness and to lock in higher attributes of who you want to be. And the more you stabilize those higher attributes through faith, through resiliency and persistence, that is when you literally become a new person. You reinvent yourself, and it doesn't matter what your circumstances are doing. And of course, from there, that is when your circumstances are given permission to actually change. When you stabilize in, you lock in those higher frequencies inside of yourself, over time, your outer world has no choice but to bend to your will and start to align with your higher state of being. All right, so those are my 4 key components. We're entering, today is the first day of 2020, depending on when you're watching this video. So I thought this would be a good one to make today to help you really, get serious, get passionate about reinventing yourself and to overcome a lot of the BS, the mediocrity, the kind of casual attitude that so many people have about this stuff. It's easy to buy into that, right? Like, that sounds good, but I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. I'll keep watching TV. I'll keep eating like my junk food, and I'll keep like just whatever, like living my life and hoping for the best. And, that kind of unconscious mediocre attitude. I want to help you shake out of that and take your life seriously, man. This life is precious. It's a gift. It's impermanent. We don't know how long we have here. So starting today, first day of 2020, let's make the most of it. Let's make a commitment that this is your year to absolutely crush it and to go to a higher level of who you are, to shift into a higher reality, to use the tools in your spiritual toolkit to really do the work and to activate your power as a human being no matter what. I'm here to help you every step of the way. Be sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon. That way you'll get notified of future videos. I'm cranking out videos on a regular basis like this one. So if you like this kind of content, definitely subscribe. Click that like button on the video. That helps it to get out to more people. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you an absolutely wonderful, prosperous, just magical 2020. You can do it. Let's make it happen. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.